Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, a daring rescue as Israeli special forces recover 2 hostages from the city of Rafah. That rescue coming as Israel prepares for its invasion of the last major Hamas stronghold and amid stories of a possible rift between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Joe Biden. A shocking event at Joel Osteen's mega church in Houston as a shooter enters the church. We'll tell you how the quick actions by 2 off-duty officers prevented a major tragedy. Agriculture in Israel was among the targets of Hamas on October 7th. We're going to tell you why agriculture there is so important, as farmers are called the heroes of Israel's story. And a thrilling Super Bowl victory for the Kansas City Chiefs, defeating the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. We'll tell you all about the game and the faith of the players from both teams. All those stories and more ahead today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We want to begin this half hour in the Middle East, where Israeli special forces rescued 2 hostages in a daring raid in the city of Rafah. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the rescue raises hopes that even more hostages can be freed.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed the dual Israeli-Argentinian citizens home and congratulated the rescue team. "I salute our brave soldiers for their bold action, which brought about their release. Only continued military pressure until a complete victory will bring about the release of all of our hostages." IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari said the operation relied on high-value intelligence and their forces waited for the right moment.
This is an operation we've been preparing for some time. The necessary preparations have been made, and we were waiting for the conditions that will allow it to be put into operation.
Within hours, the 2 rescued hostages were back with their families.
Luckily for us as a family, they were saved tonight. But I must say that the job is not done. We are happy today, but it's not we didn't win. It's just another step towards bringing all the other 134 hostages back home.
The rescue inside Rafah highlights the high-stakes confrontation over the city. Israel wants to pursue thousands of Hamas terrorists in Rafah, but the White House says the operation shouldn't go forward without a plan to protect the 1 million civilians sheltering there. Netanyahu told ABC News Israel has a plan.
We're not cavalier about this. This is part of our war effort to get civilians out of harm's way. It's part of Hamas's effort to keep them in harm's way. But we've so far succeeded, and we're going to succeed again. Those who say that under no circumstances should we enter Rafah are basically saying, lose the war. Keep Hamas there.
On Saturday, the IDF revealed a Hamas tunnel complex directly under UNRWA's main headquarters in the Gaza Strip. It found evidence UNRWA supplied the tunnel with electricity, as well as large quantities of weapons inside the UNRWA building, including rifles, ammunition, grenades, and explosives. The IDF also found documents showing Hamas terrorists used UNRWA offices. After the discovery, Israel's UN ambassador Gillan tweeted on X, "Every day we find more proof that in Gaza, the UN equals Hamas and vice versa." Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant said the IDF has entered the most sensitive Hamas locations, and they're using Hamas's own intelligence against them. He says the more they advance, the closer Israel is getting to a deal to free the hostages.
For more, we turn now to Chris in Jerusalem. So, Chris, what more can you tell us about this daring hostage rescue?
Well, first of all, Ephraim, it really sounds like some of the rescues in the past of Israel's history, like Entebbe. That's when Israeli commandos, including Benjamin Netanyahu's brother Yonatan, who was killed in that raid, but they rescued dozens of hostages kidnapped by the PLO. We do know in this raid that some of the soldiers actually went in there and they put their bodies over the hostages to protect them during the fight between some of the Hamas guards and the IDF special forces. They also had precise intelligence. They knew exactly where the hostages were, and they had to prevent the Hamas guards from killing the hostages. So they really, one of the things they did, they launched airstrikes to distract the guards. And right now the focus, as the son-in-law of one of the hostages said they're focusing on the 134 hostages remaining and their bodies. The IDF believes at least 30 of those hostages have been killed already, but there's hope for the remaining hostages. You may have watched, if you're watching the Super Bowl, there was an ad last night about the hostages, and just as a reminder to everybody there watching the Super Bowl about the remaining hostages.
Indeed. Let's talk more now about Israel's upcoming assault on Hamas in the city of Rafah. What can you tell us about the military's plan to defeat Hamas there?
Well, first of all, they want to evacuate the refugees. That's what the White House wants. That's what the Netanyahu says. They're developing a plan to move those refugees to a safe area. They could go to the north. There's also talk about a possible place on the Mediterranean that could be safe for them. There are several Hamas battalions remaining in Rafah. And Netanyahu said, if you're really trying to stop Israel from going in, you're saying that Israel should lose the war. That would allow, if they don't go into Rafah, it's going to allow Hamas to survive. And many of those hostages there are probably there, just like the two Argentinian Israeli citizens that were rescued. Also, Sinwar is likely there, as well as other top Hamas leaders. They could either be captured or killed in a battle over Rafah. All of these are Israel's war goals. And so they've gone so far that they really don't want to stop until they completely eliminate Hamas as a threat to Israel.
Will this be the last major battle of the war, or will Hamas, you think, pop up in other places yet again?
Well, I think it should be the last major battle. Khan Yunis was one before this, and then northern Gaza. There has been anticipation that if Israel did eliminate Hamas, there'll be an insurgency. That would be Hamas terrorists who won't be killed or captured, would blend into the population and try to carry out terror attacks. That's why it's crucial for Israel, the Rafah border. It serves as a smuggling place, so they really want to make sure that is closed. But there's a sense, Ephraim, that you really can't destroy the ideology completely, but you can defeat Hamas militarily.
Egypt is concerned about Israel's plans for Rafah. Why and what might they do?
Well, what they're doing is they're threatening to suspend the Camp David Accords. You'll remember that was a peace deal signed in 1979 by Israel, Egypt, and the U.S., and it's been a cornerstone of Middle East stability for almost 50 years. So that's what they're threatening, that they could suspend that peace deal. They say that it would force the closure of the main supply route into Gaza. That's what Egypt is saying. And they say that the fighting in Rafah could have thousands of Gazans pour into Sinai who might never go back. And so they don't want that to happen. So Egypt has strengthened the border. One other point, Ephraim, is that Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood that was really birthed in Egypt back in the 1920s. In Egypt, the government in Egypt is fighting the Muslim Brotherhood. So it's likely they don't want supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood from Hamas inside Egypt, and that may be one more reason they don't want many of these Gazan people into Sinai and into Egypt.
Chris, President Biden and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu talked about the efforts to free the hostages still being held. What can you tell us about that conversation?
Well, according to the White House, it lasted about 45 minutes. They discussed the hostages. They discussed humanitarian aid. Biden, according to this readout from the White House, they reaffirmed the goal of destroying Hamas. But it was also noted in that conversation that Biden doesn't want Israel to go ahead into Rafah unless there's a credible plan to make sure that all those refugees that are in Rafah have a safe place to go.
Chris, here in the United States, the Washington Post is reporting about a possible breach between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu. What is the view there in Israel about that possibility?
Well, I think here in Israel, they see it as a chilly relationship that's gotten chillier over time. You know, Biden came over within a few days of the war to show support for Israel. A lot of people really appreciated that over here. But over time, there's been several differences between Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu. Recently, what to do in Rafah. The other major stumbling block between the two is a Palestinian state. Israel doesn't want one. The U.S. does. hostages. And as it said in that Washington Post article, the aides are saying, Biden aides are saying they want Biden to be more public in his opposition to Netanyahu. And the big question is, how is this going to affect U.S. military aid and its diplomatic support?
All right, Chris Mitchell reporting for us from Jerusalem. Thank you so much. We encourage you to stay safe. And of course, we are back here praying for you and the entire team there in Israel. Coming up, a Sunday shooting at Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church in Houston. Thankfully, two off-duty police officers acted quickly to prevent what could have been a major tragedy. We're going to have the story for you when we come back. Stay with us. A shooting at Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church in Houston injured two people before the shooter was killed. Police are praising the quick response of two off-duty officers for preventing a greater tragedy. CBN's Dale Hurd is on this story.
This video shows a Spanish broadcast from Lakewood Church shortly before an afternoon service. Then the shooting began. Houston police say a woman in her early 30s wearing a trench coat entered the church with a rifle and a backpack and immediately opened fire.
I was just walking up the stairs, and when I got on the top, like they started shooting. I don't know, like I just heard, but it was like more than 10 shots.
They were repetitive, boom, 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 and I yelled, "Mom!"
Two off-duty police officers working at the church shot and killed the attacker. A young boy between 4 and 5 years of age who was with the female shooter was hit by gunfire and was listed in critical condition overnight at a Houston area hospital. A 57-year-old man in the church was shot in the leg and is also being treated.
That female, that suspect, put that baby in danger. I'm gonna put that blame on her.
Police say before the shooter died, she claimed to have a bomb, but officers say no explosives were found. Pastor Joel Osteen praised the swift actions of law enforcement and said the church is praying for the victims and the shooter's family.
Of course, we're devastated. We're going to pray for that little 5-year-old boy and pray for the lady that was deceased, her family and all, and the other gentlemen. There are forces of evil, but the forces that are for us, the forces of God are stronger than that. So we're going to keep going strong and just, doing what God's called us to do, lift people up and give hope to the world.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Still ahead, amid the war in Gaza, one Israeli agricultural organization, which is working to make the deserts bloom again, had to quickly shift gears. We're going to bring you a look at what they've done. And the farmers are called the heroes in Israel's story. Find out why right after this. An Israeli organization that helps prevent worldwide food shortages shifted gears October 7th after Hamas targeted Israel's agriculture. As CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl tells us, farmers are planning to make the desert bloom again.
Nahal Oz sits less than a half mile from the Gaza border. On October 7th, Hamas terrorists killed 15 here, including the head of security, kidnapped 9, and also chose another major target.
Why they bothered to burn this tractor, this 1.5 million shekel worth of tractor? Why they bothered to burn all of our irrigation equipment? You don't have that much time because Israeli IDF will come.
Agriculture in the Negev is strategically important to Israel's food security. Some 70% of vegetables and 20% of fruit are grown here. That's why terrorists targeted the agriculture on October 7th.
They are trying to take the connection from us to our land, to our earth. And if you are not doing agriculture, then why stay here? Why live here? you can live near Tel Aviv.
Moran Freibach, head of agriculture at Kibbutz Nachal Oz, has lived here all of his life. Now he's looking forward to the next 5 years.
I see only the potential, and I see only work that I have to do in order to rebuild everything and to put everything back into place better. Not only back as it was, better. That's my mission.
Many say that agriculture is at a crisis level here, in the area where many say God fulfilled his word to make the desert bloom. Estimates add up to $500 million in lost income, around 100,000 acres of agricultural land affected, and a labor force crisis for farmers who need some 30,000 workers.
Before October the 7th, our whole mission was to tackle global hunger with Israeli agricultural expertise. But on October the 7th, we understood that the agricultural crisis is also at home. And so we pivoted almost immediately.
That led Danielle Abraham of Volcani International Partnerships to initiate Project Regrow Israel.
We spoke to our partners in the field across the Western Negev, the farmers, the regional councils, and we said to them, what do you need? And these people had undergone massive trauma. And they said to me, Danielle, you have to understand, right now, we can't even think about the next hour, let alone the next week or months or years ahead.
That means Regrow Israel will focus on helping these communities think through their needs, plan to build a better future, and raise money for areas hit the hardest.
The foreign workers that were living here, they were targeted in their beds while they were sleeping.
In Kibbutz Alomim, 22 Thai and Nepalese workers were murdered and 2 taken hostage. Since then, 1 has been released. Established in 1966, Kibbutz Alomim's main income is agriculture, with hundreds of acres of fruit and avocado orchards, plus a large dairy. Terrorists shot holes in the milk tank, ruining it, burned storehouses of food, and delayed the milking of cows for days, leading to a huge drop in productivity. Then there's the irrigation equipment.
We're farming in the Western Negev. It's a semi-arid area. We're farming on the edge of the desert. Everybody knows that the issue of water, Israel is a leader in water use efficiency for agriculture. So the water infrastructure is at the heart of the agricultural economy. This is where the pipes for the irrigation are wrapped around. They're rubber. Every single one of them was set on fire.
In this place, irrigation equipment for the potato crop is now destroyed, as are numerous greenhouses and chicken coops. As Israel's largest pepper grower, Alomim had to leave fields of peppers unharvested. Back at the border of Nachal Oz, Moran says they rebuilt their water reservoir destroyed by Hamas and planted wheat about a month ago.
We are doing agriculture until the last meter, even now when we are at zone. We are standing right now in a war zone. This is why you see a tank right there.
Abraham says the farmers are heroes in Israel's story.
Some of the heroes in our society that are going out under fire with a view to the future, with all of their tractors stolen and burned, and sowing wheat in the fields.
She has great hope for the future.
And then my dream is that on this area, which is where Israel made the desert bloom, we will be able to make it bloom once again. They will see the farmers growing back stronger with automation across the dairy and the greenhouses and the packing houses. I want us to see new innovations for climate-resilient agriculture that the world can come here and learn from. I want to see the new generation coming into farming in Israel.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Kibbutz Nachal Oz and Kibbutz Alomim.
Still ahead, Kansas City celebrates as the Chiefs win their 2nd straight Super Bowl title with a thrilling overtime victory over the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to hear about the faith of the players on both teams. It's coming up right after this. A huge win for the Kansas City Chiefs Sunday night in Super Bowl 58, capturing their 2nd consecutive NFL championship with a thrilling 25-22 victory in overtime, becoming the first team in 19 years to win back-to-back Super Bowls. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes led the comeback, winning the game with a touchdown pass in overtime. And he said his team is looking to win a 3rd straight year title.
Yeah, I'm going to celebrate tonight. I'm going to celebrate at the parade, and then I'm going to do whatever I can to be back in this game next year and try to go for that 3-peat.
49ers quarterback Brock Purdy said his team had the opportunities to win but didn't capitalize on them. Purdy and other players from both teams have openly spoken about their Christian faith. Purdy told CBN Sports, "Yeah, I would just say, not trying to hold on too tightly to your life and what you do with your job, and making sure your identity is in Jesus." Kansas City kicker Harrison Butker set a Super Bowl record with a 57-yard goal. He said, "I never thought I'd ever be on a stage like this, but here I am, and I need to glorify God for that." And Kansas City tight end Noah Gray said, "I've just been very grateful in my life. It's been humbling to be able to follow Jesus." You can find more quotes from the players and more Super Bowl coverage at cbnnews.com. Well, right now it is time for your Monday motivation. And today I leave you with this thought. Listen closely. God is speaking, and He is calming words for your troubled times. He doesn't want your heart to be troubled. Believe in Him and know Jesus has overcome the world. And your belief in Him, well, it gives you that victory too at all times. With that word, make this a marvelous Monday, and be sure to have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. We'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye and God bless.